towns that I savor, like my hometown that I favor, that old place down the long road that I'm traveling to. There's the jokes at the barber, told by Cleve from the hardware, about the stories that always make the news. Our town, wherever I may roam, I'll always have a place that I call home. Our town is very plain to see. There'll always be a part of you in me.
In eastern Ontario, Grenville County fronts on the majestic waterway referred to by the early French explorers as the River of Canada. Behind me is the St. Lawrence, the first inland route that led to the settling of our country. Situated alongside this famous river is the friendly fort town of Prescott. It was here that much of Canada's earliest and most fascinating history was recorded. Indian village, Loyalist settlement, military post, and capital of the 19th century forwarding trade, Prescott occupies an important place in Canadian history. I'm Barry Penhale, and welcome to Sketches of Our Town. The first vessels to travel this waterway carried those intrepid adventurers from Europe who were seeking the route to Lachine, or China. They were lured by the legends of the Orient. This same river was later to represent to many a gateway to hope and peace in a new land. Another role of the St. Lawrence has been as a border shared between two nations. At marked periods in history, it was also a field of battle. Two Fort Wellingtons have occupied this height of land above the St. Lawrence River at Prescott. They were built to guard the frontier during periods in the 19th century when Canada's existence was repeatedly threatened. The British recognized the urgency to protect water communication between Kingston and Montreal from disruption by the Americans. Shipping was particularly vulnerable to attack in this area, for the young settlement was upriver from a stretch of dangerous rapids, where goods had to be transferred from lake ship to bateau. Directly across the river from here, at Ogdensburg, New York, stood an American military outpost. The original Fort Wellington was built by the King's German Legion, serving the British Crown during the War of 1812. It was constructed on a land grant that had been originally given to the founder of Prescott, Loyalist Major Edward Jessup. During the war, two attacks were made by the garrison on Ogdensburg, the first being unsuccessful. However, on the night of February 22, 1813, Colonel Red George MacDonnell marched the Glengarry Light Infantry across the frozen river to capture the town and gain command of the St. Lawrence. With peace returning after the war and improved relations with the United States, the importance of the fort declined. Following a short period in which it was unoccupied, the fort that had been built and named after the Duke of Wellington was again brought into service and later rebuilt. By the late 1800s, a deep unrest was brewing in the Canadian provinces. The young colony was coming of age, but the British crowned appointees held the authority to override the elected assemblies. The power lay in the hands of the establishment. The family compact, as it was referred to, was to be challenged. It was a time of questioning and outright rebellion. The solution sought was one of government reform and home rule. The sound of gunfire was to resound once again along this shoreline. In 1837, an armed revolt led by William Lyon Mackenzie broke out in Upper Canada. When it failed, the ensuing hunt for rebels drove a stream of refugees into American territory, where strong sympathy was quickly kindled. The rebels soon had the border states aflame with a call for a sacred crusade to liberate Canada. Just 2 miles east of Prescott, this windmill, now the property of Parks Canada, has been designated a National Historic Site. The very spot on which I stand was the site of a bloody 5-day-long battle back in 1838. On that occasion, British regulars joined forces with Canadian militia to repel an invasion by American patriots. It was the last armed invasion of Canada. Mackenzie gave impetus to the secret Patriot Hunters movement, calling the family compact a nest of unclean birds. November 1838 was set as the date for an invasion of Upper Canada. The self-appointed Major General John Ward Burge's grand plan called for the seizure of Fort Wellington. The attack was to prove ill-fated. With a raiding party of 400 men aboard 2 schooners, Burge, the notorious river pirate Bill Johnston, and this man, Niels von Schultz, a veteran of the Polish Revolutionary War, crossed the river. After grounding his schooner at Windmill Point, von Schultz, now abandoned by his comrades, took refuge in the stone windmill. Surrendering days later, the Patriots were taken to Fort Henry, where 11 men were hanged, including von Schultz, represented by the young lawyer, John A. MacDonald. The windmill, converted to a lighthouse, is a visible reminder of this early turbulent period. The river remains as the marker of peace. By the mid-1800s, Prescott was the eastern terminus of Great Lakes navigation. It was a harbor town, a sailor's town. The docks were noisy with the sound of ringing bells, fluttering sails, and songs from the Water Street grog shops, like the Dog and Duck or the Black Bull. The activities of this era are preserved in the Forwarding Museum, where I met with the founder, Jack Morris, retired publisher of the Prescott Journal.
We'll have to go back a few years, perhaps, to say 1810, when the river was the main avenue of communication. There were no streets, there were no roads, there were no highways, there were no railroads. And the reason for the forwarding trade was the fact that between Prescott and Montreal, there was a series of 10 rapids. Some of them were very, very rough. The Long Sault between here and Cornwall was the worst of them all, I think. Then followed by the Lachine. Immediately below Prescott was the Galoo Rapids, between here and Cardinal. That meant that the schooners, which operated between Prescott and the lakes, couldn't get downstream to Montreal. They couldn't navigate the rapids. So therefore, somebody had to take the produce down, and somebody had to bring produce and people up from Montreal. So the result was that some enterprising people formed forwarding companies. Captain Gilkison was the first one. He came from Scotland, and he bought this area of land where we're sitting right now. He bought 3 lots from Colonel Jessup, who was the founder of it. And he built this building, and he also built a number of warehouses on the dock just below us, and started the forwarding trade between here and Montreal. I think he made a bundle of money out of it, too, being a real canny Scot. In the beginning, those bateaux were pulled by the manpower. Sometimes the men wading up to their necks in that cold St. Lawrence water. Eventually there was towpaths, and there were oxen, and then horses, and until some canals were built. All the buildings along here faced on the river, because that was the front door. East and west of us was covered with warehouses and offices, and it was all connected with the forwarding trade. There was no industry of such along here, but you would have you'd have the bateau, you'd have the Durham boats, you'd have the larger schooners coming in from up in the lakes, and I would think it was a very hectic time, very prosperous from the opening of navigation right through until the fall. There'd be these schooners arriving, unloading off here, and then storing it perhaps in the warehouses, and then loading it back on the bateau and getting downstream, and the same coming upstream. They had to just the same thing in reverse. I would say that the forwarding trade was the foundation upon which Prescott was built.
Soldiers from disbanded Loyalist regiments had flooded into Grenville County from refugee camps in Quebec by 1794. They were joined by their families and supporters of the Empire who crossed the St. Lawrence from the United States. A grateful British government granted land to these families who, although challenged by hardships, were resourceful and not a breed to be daunted. Dr. Solomon Jones, one of the first doctors in Upper Canada, built this Georgian home, a home which would anchor his family through 6 generations. From his apple orchards came the Joneses' red fameurs, acclaimed around the world. Homewood today is preserved as a museum. Nearby, the Blue Church is known as the resting place of Barbara Heck, the founder of Methodism in Canada. Buried here also are Roderick and Daniel Mackenzie, cousins of the late Sir Alexander Mackenzie. They were with Sir Alex when he discovered the Mackenzie River in 1780. The homes and buildings recall a colorful past era. The J.P. Weiser Distillery was once one of the most noted industries of Prescott. Weiser's interest in cattle and horse breeding led to the establishment of the Rysdick Stock Farm. Also, through the Weiser influence, Prescott played host to the 18th running of the Queen's Plate in July of 1877. For decades, the foot of Center Street was alive with the shuttling of passengers to and fro on the Prescott and Ogdensburg ferry. The son of a ferry boat captain, hockey great Leo Beaubien calls Prescott home. Other native sons, Bert Wormington of baseball fame, Sir Richard William Scott, father of the Canada Temperance Act, Lieutenant William F. Sharp, Canada's first military airman, author W. Bruce Hutchinson, and Major J.M. Walsh of the Northwest Mounted Police. Situated along the river, one of the town's earliest homes is the pride of the family of Barbara Sargent.
Well, of course, it's known as the cottage property. However, it was the main house was constructed by Susanna Colville Jessup. She was married to Major Jessup's son, the founder of Prescott. Because of her UEL rights, Susanna was given 50 acres, and this was part of it, you see. Well, of course, that's one of the reasons I guess we've stayed here. It's the river. Once you've lived beside the river, it's very difficult to leave it. You can move someplace else in town, which is worse than moving out of the country, because you know that river is there, but you can't see it from your bedroom window. I come downstairs in the morning to make the coffee. The first thing I see is the river. The river is a great fact of our lives and enjoyment. And it's wonderful to have it there just to be able to enjoy it.
The Fort Town's main thoroughfare retains many reminders of its early history. The business section relocated to King from Water Street when the forwarding era declined. The King's Highway Number 2, once a toll road, threaded along the St. Lawrence westward from Montreal to Toronto, funneling stagecoach and later automobile traffic through the town's main core. The building of the Prescott Bytown Railway brought further change to travel patterns and commerce. The Jones and Dowsley Foundry, manufacturers of box stoves, and the Grenville Brewery employed many of the town's people. Once referred to as the Needle and Thread Town, many of its main industries were in the apparel business, from glove making to silk mills. Presiding over the main intersection of King and Center Streets is the Rotary Clock Tower, housing the original clock from the former town hall. The clock, purchased for the town by the early Daniels family, remains a tradition.
I'm involved in a program called the Main Street Canada program, and I'm working with the business people in Prescott and other interests concerning the downtown area. And I'm sponsored by Heritage Canada, the Heritage Canada Foundation from Ottawa.
In Prescott today, one senses a renaissance, a time of renewal. I was interested in learning more of this activity and met with John Quinn. He explained that the Heritage Canada program was designed to bolster Canada's architectural and cultural heritage.
There are quite a collection of business people in Prescott. There are many old established businesses, second and third generation, and then there are a whole breed of newcomers to Prescott. Even in the last 10 years, you're still a newcomer to Prescott. Everyone is very interested in the future of the downtown area, and they're very independent sorts, and they are willing to try to bring about a revitalization along the street.
The main streets of small towns are visual reminders of another time, and they give the town a sense of continuity with its past.
The Main Street program is designed to help bring about in each particular town the formula that will work to help revitalize the business part of the town. Each town is so different, and it's a mechanism by which the town can sort of discover itself and the route to future prosperity.
Standing on the shoulders of earlier generations, these are the words chosen by Lee McKnight, a beloved former mayor, to describe that progressive advancement to future prosperity. The Fort Town, that has played such a vital role in the shaping of the Canadian identity, cherishes its beginnings, its native sons and daughters, and its river. Along this river, the timber footings of the coal dock still remain, as reminders of the days of the forwarders. Echoing from the past, the voice of military commands can still be heard from the ramparts of the fort. Prescott celebrates her heritage in the annual Loyalist Days festivities, which culminates in the colorful period battle reenactment, attracting participants from all over North America. The late Premier Duplessis of Quebec once used the expression, history was like a rear-view mirror. And indeed, to the people of Prescott and Grenville County, heritage is a living thing. With her roots nourished by the mighty St. Lawrence, her personality adaptable to change, the friendly Fort Town progresses into the future, building on a foundation of courage and determination.
I'll see the folks up on Main Street who will always take the time for a story over coffee at the old Five and Dime. The flag on our town hall through the years has flown free, a tribute to our hometown's history. Place that I call home. Our town, it's very plain to see. There'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always be a part of you.